Hi, everybody. My name is Buddy Gott. Welcome to Buddy's Writing Show, episode 38. On tonight's show, I'm very, very happy to have with me a very cool guy and a very talented writer named Noah Mullette-Gillman. Welcome to the show, Noah.
Thanks, buddy. It's a pleasure to be here.
And Noah's got a new book out. Noah's got several books out, but I'll mention his new one first. And that's The Secrets of the Universe, which is the book one of the Farther Than We Dreamed series. Right, Noah?
That's exactly right, yeah.
Okay, can you tell the viewers a little bit about this one and about the series?
Well, yeah, it is a series. It's not just a book put out with the hope of there being a series later on. This actually contains episodes 1 through 4, and I'm hoping to have episode 5 out as soon as December. I've got about 65,000 words of the series written past what I've published already. It's a big science fiction story. The concept is, and I've been working on this for many years, with what we understand about science, you can travel great distances out in space, but you run into very practical problems about traveling beyond a certain distance. Even if you can somehow figure out how to go at the speed of light or faster than that, other problems will come along. Maybe you can travel at the speed of light, but something's still a million light years away. So how do you get there?
Right.
So the idea in this book, the idea in this book is you could never send people out beyond a certain distance, but maybe you could send something like a radio wave, and that radio wave travels all the way out to the other side of the universe, and it finds matter there, and it, through the vibrations, changes the matter into the shape it wants it to be. Now, my first thought is, hey, you can make a robot on the other side of the universe. But I thought about it for a long time. I had that thought back in, I think, 91.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah. But I did a little better than a robot. What it actually does is it takes the matter on the other side of the universe and it makes them into people. Not random people, but the exact people you've designed for this. So it creates the specific captain, a guy named Charlie Damon. A specific doctor, a guy named David Elfweird, and a crew of 12 people. And these 12 people are, in theory, the perfect people designed for this mission. In theory.
In theory.
And they're taken from historical characters born anywhere from the late 21st century out into the 28th century.
Wow.
So one of the great things we get to do in this story is we kind of get on the side a future history of the next 800 years of, not just the planet Earth, but the human empire as we go out into space.
Oh, wow.
And that's a very interesting story on its own. But the most important and interesting people from those 800 years end up being on the crew. So.
Isn't one of them like I was looking on Amazon, like one's a musician, a rock star, or something like that?
Actually, far more of the crew are artists and musicians than you would expect in a story like this.
Oh,
this is not
cool.
just a retread. Yeah, it's not just a retread of Star Trek or Star Wars. They're not all just military people, although there are a few of those as well. One of them is a guy named Wu Gui. He's a Chinese cyborg warlord from, I think, the 25th century, and he's a really great heavy metal guitar player.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that.
My main character is a guy named Charlie Damon, and he was a rock and roll musician from the late 21st century who later in his life went on to become the last U.S. president.
Wow.
Now, he doesn't actually remember this. He doesn't remember this because there's something wrong with him. The him that wakes up on the spaceship, he only remembers his life until a certain day, and then he wakes up on the spaceship. Everyone else on the crew, they remember their lives up until, well, really all the information they needed, and then they get a nice briefing, a nice explanation of where they're going, who the rest of the crew is going to be. But Charlie didn't get any of that. So the guy you'd want to be the captain of the ship was this guy who was this great late 21st century president and leader. The guy they did get was a musician who'd been in the military a little while, He's not really suited for the job at the beginning of the story.
Right. Well, that'd make it more fun, I think. That's awesome. That's a
Yeah,
really,
well, that's
that's a
exactly
really
right.
great original idea because, like you said, it's not like some sort of like remake of a Star Wars or a Star Trek. That's really cool. The characters
Right.
you're describing there. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
and I'm really just giving you the tip of the iceberg here because
Hmm.
as we move forward in time, um, well, here's the thing. If you want people to live on other planets, one way you could do it is terraforming, right? You can make the planets suit us.
Hmm.
But it turns out that's a lot harder than changing people to make people suit the planets. So one of the crew members is a guy named Dr. David Elfweird, and he was the man who invented the Martian race. What he
Oh,
did is he
wow.
took humans. Yeah, he took humans and he genetically changed us so we could live on Mars. Not everybody, just a select
Mhm.
group.
Right.
And they then went on and lived on Mars. And as we get into crew members later and later in history, it becomes more of a standard thing that you're not fully human, you're post-human.
Hmm.
You've been designed to live on whatever planet you're living on. So, one of my crew members, she's got red skin and a tail. Another one's covered in white fur and has horns.
Oh, wow.
I've got yeah. They end up, they're all related to us, but they're not 100% the same DNA as us because it's been adapted to live out in the universe.
Oh, very cool. I want to. Someone else. I said very cool, and I want to bring this up because we have a live viewer who said that he thought this was really cool. This
Wonderful.
is. Let me see if I can bring it up. Yeah, this is from
Yeah.
Xavier Granville. He's a friend of mine, fan of the show. He said, "Oh man, I have to go for a smoke, but I hope that this interview is still going when I get back. I'm 4 minutes in, and I'm loving the rock star military idea. Heavy metal."
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. Now
well,
you.
well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I did let a number of people read the book before I decided to self-publish it, and one of the criticisms I got is that Charlie seemed to be spending too much time writing songs rather than ordering everybody around.
Oh.
But I think that's the part of what's really interesting to me about him as a protagonist is he's not Captain Kirk. He's not Han Solo. He's not the guy you would put in this job. Maybe 20 years later in his life he'd become him, but
Mhm.
now it's like Elvis or Billy Idol's in charge.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And Billy
Yeah,
Idol's got a new album
yeah.
coming out this month, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
He does on the 21st, and his autobiography just came out.
Oh, I did not know that. That's fantastic. All right, we'll have
Yeah,
to talk. We'll have
yeah,
to talk about that later on too. All right. So
yeah.
now this volume you say contains the first 4 episodes, or first,
That's right.
yeah, and then you
Four.
hope to have the fifth one out.
Yeah, well, what I've done is I put the first four together to get you a start. I don't
Hmm.
want anybody reading one episode and then thinking about it. No, I wanted you to have a full meal.
Hmm.
And then I'm hoping to publish future episodes every 2 months.
Oh,
And
okay.
I hope to get that through at least the next book, the next 4 episodes. And then we'll see how fast I am, whether there's a gap after that or not. But I'm one way or another working on 6 and 7, and number 5 I just sent off to my editor. So it's going to continue.
Oh, great. That's great. And yeah, like I said, I mean, this is an incredibly original idea. So I'm excited to check this out. Hey, you know what? I think you might have your audio just changed up a little bit. Now, did anything maybe come loose or? Let's,
Is that any better? A little closer to my mouth?
yeah, I think we're okay. It sounds a little different, but we're going to soldier on through because we're cool guys like
All
that.
right.
Okay. You've got a bunch of other books out too. So I just kind of want to start at the beginning of your publishing career. Okay. Well, let me ask you this: when did you first take an interest in writing? Is it something
Uh,
that you've had around since you've been a kid? Or?
Yeah, it's taken different forms. When I was a kid, my first interest was playing with little action figures, which I'd tell stories with. Then I was huge on Dungeons and Dragons when I was like 9, 10 years old, wanting to make up stories with my
Mhm.
friends. By the time I got to high school, I really wanted to write comic books. Well, first I wanted to draw and write, but I discovered I was a lot better at writing than drawing, so I picked a direction. When I got into college, I started writing lots of poetry. After college, I was in a lot of bands writing lyrics.
Oh, cool.
And a bit of a turning point for me was a few years back. I was living in Boston, And one of my good friends, a guy named Mike Snow, who hopefully is watching this out there somewhere, he was a guitar player in one of my bands, and he went out to LA to go to one of those pitch fests where you go meet all the Hollywood studios and you tell them about the movies you've written and try to convince them to buy it. So he went out there for the weekend, hadn't written any movies, but he just went out there and he bullshitted. And a bunch of studios wanted to read these movies he told them he'd written. So he got back and he told me about this, and I was like, what the hell? I'm the writer, you're the guitar player. 3 weeks later, I'd written my first movie script, which was Cowboys Zombie.
Cowboys and Zombies, yeah?
Yeah. And some cowboy zombies while they're at it, too.
Oh, nice, nice.
It was a very funny movie. Didn't get made or anything, but I then went to the next pitch fest, and a whole bunch of studios wanted to read it. So I moved out to LA as a result of this. Movie never got made, and when I got out to LA, I met a lot of people, learned a lot about the industry, and really suddenly started writing more prose. I wanted to be in charge of my work. I didn't want to submit it to a director who then does what he wants with it.
Right.
You know, the writer is not the top guy on the totem pole in Hollywood. And for my work, I need to be that guy. I need to be the auteur, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I wrote my first two books. One was about genies, and one was a big fantasy story, a 250,000-word fantasy story.
Oh, wow.
I spent 2 years doing nothing but going to work and coming home and living and breathing that story. And when I was done, I tried to sell it to publishers, and they didn't want it. And that was a big blow for me, because I thought, well, how could they not want this wonderful story?
Right.
And so I didn't write for maybe a year or so afterwards. Not that I was giving it up, but I was feeling pretty down about it.
Yeah, it's understandable. That's for sure.
Sure. And at that point is when I heard about self-publishing. And I had a novella I'd written in between the two novels called The White Hairs, which I was very proud of, although it was short. And I decided, well, why don't I try the self-publishing thing? And so I published The White Hairs. And that's the beginning of my publishing history. Now
what is The White Hairs about, for anyone who wants to check it out?
The White Hairs is a story about a guy named Farshul, who he's a big white furry creature living on a snowy mountain somewhere on Earth, and I never tell you where.
Okay.
And he and his people, who are not humans, maybe there's something like an abominable snowman or a yeti. They just call themselves the White Hairs. They have a ceremony they do where they all sit in a circle, and they leave their bodies, and they go out and they explore the wind and the weather and the earth, and travel what we might call astrally.
I would love to do that.
Oh, yeah, God, yeah. So Farshul sits down for the first time to do it. He gets to the right age where he can participate in the ceremony. And he closes his eyes, and he sees himself up in the wind, and he's blowing around, and he's exploring everything, and he comes back to his body. And they tell him, well, you didn't manage to do it. You didn't leave your body. But everyone else did. And he's like, what are you talking about? I was up there. I didn't see any of you. And they're like, yeah, we were up there. We didn't see you. And that's kind of the beginning of the story. He has to find his own path. It's very much a spiritual, philosophical book.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And now your first novel. Now I think our viewers can see behind you. There's something there that says luminous and ominous, and I believe that was your first published novel, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was the first full-length novel. This was a post-apocalyptic horror story. The concept behind that one is these 3 comets come down to Earth. And, that happens all the time. It's not a big deal. But these comets have living alien matter on them. Nothing you could talk to. Something more like plants. Well, they're not exactly plants. It's alien. There's one character, and he has a friend who's in the Peace Corps in Africa. And he gets a message from her telling him that this alien plant life has landed on Earth, and it's growing, and it's going to take over the world, and everybody's about to panic. Here's your 3 days warning. So he goes and tells one friend, and they know a safe place they can hide, where they could fit a few people. But they've only got 3 days, and they don't have enough room for everyone they know. So they got a very difficult and I think delicious problem here
Right.
of who do you save, who do you leave behind. You've got to be practical. You've got to save the people you care about, you love, but you can't save all of them. And for example, let's say you invite this one friend of yours. Well, he's got a wife and 3 kids, so that's 4 people. You can't invite him. There's no room for 4 people.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
a lot of difficult decisions, and you've got to prep the place, you've got to buy everything, and you've got 3 days.
Wow.
So it's yeah,
That's
it's
pretty
a
cool.
great problem. Yeah, and the plant, the alien thing, I called it cornucopia blue, and it looks I don't know if you can see it all. Looks a little like that, purple and green and blue alien life exploding
nice.
like a kudzu all over the planet. And the survivors, they hide underground in a bunker underneath one of the old Borscht Belt hotels in the Catskills
Oh, wow.
for a year.
Very cool.
Yeah, I went to high school around there, so I know the area, and it's very accurate. When I talk about stores, when I talk about what happened there, it's all 100% real. After they're down there a year, 3 of them are left, and they have to try to walk from Monticello, New York to Liberty, New York, which is a 20-minute drive. But you try it over, a new jungle of alien growth that's appeared over the last year.
Well, that sounds great. And another one I wanted to ask. Well, I'm going to ask you about all of them, but when we first met online, you had just published a book, and I bought it just on the strength of the title of it, and I read it and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But Magic Makes You Strange, and this is the part that got me: the Brontosaurus Pluto Society, book 1.
Yeah.
That just struck me, and I'm like, okay, that's just awesome. Can you tell? You're welcome. Can you tell the viewers about that one?
Well, this one broke my heart a little bit. I don't normally like to talk about sales, but this book I was so excited about and so proud of when it came out. And I learned a lot by the fact that it didn't sell at all. Even the people who loved my work previously, they were polite, but for the most part, present company accepted, really not interested in it. And I think the reason has to do with I didn't color within the lines as far as genre goes. I mean, you've read the book. What genre is it? Kind of neither this nor that.
Yeah, which I kind of like, because I know the stuff that I work on kind of hops all over the place. There's some humor in there, and it's just but I hear that a lot from writers where they've met some opposition, maybe some struggles when it wasn't a clearly defined just one genre, and it sounds like unfortunately you had dealt with that yourself.
Yeah, I did, but it's a really interesting book. Or for me, it is at least. The concept was magic is real, but when you cast a spell, it has an effect on you. The more magic you do, the more magic you know, the more it changes you. So maybe by the time you've spent many years casting spells, you don't even look human anymore, and you go a little crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote a sequel, a sort of sequel. Maybe
I was going to ask you about that because I love this. It's like a book within the book, within a book.
That's right. Yeah. There's a book called The Confessions of Zeus-Peter, which until I wrote The Secrets of the Universe, a lot of people told me was actually my best work. And the concept is that it's a book written by the protagonist of Magic Makes You Strange.
I love that.
Yeah, I did too. And it's the story of the conflict between Zeus and Jesus once upon a time. For those of you worried out there, I think I'm respectful. I don't really, well, for some people, even in a small way, having Jesus and Satan as characters in the book is going to be, a problem.
Yeah.
But
they just need to lighten up, Noah. They need to lighten up.
Well, I think so. And I have a big disclaimer at the front of the book that this book's not going to be for them. But that aside, it's a really fun adventure into mythology. We see Zeus, we see Pluto, we see Satan, we see Jesus, and we see a great little wood spirit named Goldie, who I was very I liked a lot.
Right.
And they go on an adventure looking for Pluto, and it's starring all the gods.
Right. And what's the title of this one? The book?
The Confessions of Zeus-Peter.
Okay. And you say that even though it's like a sequel, it's kind of standalone also, isn't it? I thought I read that in
Yeah, 100% standalone. There's nothing in this book which requires that you've read Magic Makes You Strange, um, except for the description, which will make you feel like you missed something, because it
Right.
is supposedly written by Edward Wistman, who's a character of Magic Makes You Strange.
Hmm.
But it 100% stands on its own.
Hmm.
In fact, I'll tell you a secret. I'll tell you a secret. I haven't told many people. I
Okay.
wrote it first.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you really? Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I wrote it first, and I wasn't in a rush to publish it because I didn't think it was very marketable. I mean, I was aware of that at the time,
Hmm.
but I then wrote Magic Makes You Strange, and I saw that there could be a connection there. So I then published it under the auspices of the Brontosaurus Pluto Society.
Oh, that's really interesting. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, I was looking on your page on Amazon, and now I don't really know anything about this. I don't know if it's a book or a short story, but the title struck me: "The Song of Ballad and Crescendo."
Yeah. This is a very short story,
Hmm.
and anyone who would like to read it can actually get a free copy on Smashwords. It's been for free there for a long time. Um, when I first started writing, I mentioned I wrote a 250,000 word novel that I never published,
Hmm.
and in that novel there was a lot of storytelling going on. The characters would tell each other stories. This is one of the stories, so it's kind of an excerpt from an
Oh, okay.
unpublished book of my own. It's quite short. I think it's very beautiful. It's a fable, and it stands on its own.
Oh, nice, nice. And now here's one too. I remember when this one came out, and I remember you even like on, I believe it was on Facebook, showing your friends like the different covers that you had in mind for it, and I know you were very excited
Yeah,
about it. And another fantastic, fantastic title here, and that's "The Dead Have Rolled Earth for 200 Years." What a great
I'm
title!
very
I love that.
yeah, I'm very proud of this book. I think it's a very strong story. In my opinion, it was a big step up in writing ability for me. Very proud of the execution. The concept is, it's been 200 years since the zombie outbreak, and pretty much everyone on Earth, well, actually, everyone on Earth is dead.
Hmm.
However, some of humanity escapes the planet and went off into space.
Oh, okay.
And on this day, 200 years after the zombie apocalypse, 3 humans arrive back on Earth wearing these gigantic robotic suits, blowing up zombies by the thousand to the left and the right. And I don't want to spoil too much, but they're going back for something very important that got left behind.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
they land, and there's really thousands of zombies coming at them, and they're just blowing them up. And everything's great until one of them is an idiot, which I think is how things are supposed to work in a true horror story. That the monsters
Right.
never beat you; you beat yourself.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
boy, does that happen in this book.
That's great. That sounds like it'd be a hell of a movie. Maybe that movie thing is still going to happen for you. You never know.
I'd love to, except I was maybe I don't know how many months after the book came out, there was that Tom Cruise movie. What was it, Oblivion?
Oh,
Which
yeah, I'm not
has
sure.
it has an incredible number of similarities to the book, and I think that killed the possibility of this ever being a movie.
Yeah. I hate when Tom Cruise rips you off. I mean, he's ripping you off. He ripped off my whole, Bob Seger dancing in the underwear thing. I did that years before Cruise did, and it's,
Yeah.
he's got some talent, but he's like, riding on our coattails, Noah.
Well, I'll tell you, there's actually a very strange relationship between Tom Cruise and my books. Back to the Secrets of the Universe. There's a lot to tell you there. It's better to read it, but one
Right.
of the things I didn't get to is, we've got this crew out in space, and whenever one of them dies, they go back to day zero. So let's say you've been out on the mission for 5 years. One of the crew members dies. They wake up back on their bed on the first day of the mission. They don't remember anything they've done. They remember their old life, but they're back at zero again.
Oh, interesting.
So then Tom Cruise makes a movie about dying again and again and resetting the deck, which is kind of the opposite, but it's uncomfortably close after what he did to me
Right.
last year.
You got to
Yeah,
keep an
so
eye on that guy. You got to keep an eye on that
I'm
guy.
looking for him. Yeah.
So now you had mentioned how people could find your one story on Smashwords. Now I know you're pretty active online. I know you're on Twitter, right? You've got some pretty cool tweets. I think people should check you out on Twitter.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I took for a long time, I was actually very quiet online because once I started working on the Secrets of the Universe, I didn't have the heart to try and sell any of my old books anymore. I'm very proud of them, but I was so much more proud of my
Right.
current work. So, you know, I couldn't be the salesman for them anymore. So for a long time, things went quiet.
Hmm.
But now I'm trying to get things started up again. I am on Twitter. I am on Facebook. There's a Facebook group for Farther Than We Dreamed. You can go to fartherthanwedreamed.com. Anywhere online, you can find the words "Farther Than We Dreamed." It's going to be about this book.
Yeah, and yeah, check that out. I'm going to be putting links here on the show notes. So if you're checking it out, it's I can never remember what side it's on, but it's look down there, folks. Where it says Buddy's Writing Show. I'll put links to Noah's Amazon page and some of his websites. I did have another question about your books because this is something I'm
Yeah.
curious about, and it's a writing show. A lot of writers watch the show, obviously. Curious about your writing process. Now, something like The Secrets of the Universe, sounds very, very intricate. And I'm curious now, are you someone who does a whole lot of outlining before you start, or do you just kind of dive into it? And then how do you work, Noah? Because, I mean, this sounds like it's got so much in it. It can't, certainly not an easy endeavor.
No, I can't possibly tell you how difficult it was because it's the kind of story that falls apart when one detail's wrong. You
Hmm.
know, this book is dying for a continuity error or a plot hole to just
Right.
make you not believe in the whole thing. So I and my editor and everyone, we worked so hard to make sure they weren't there. To answer your question, it's different for every work. The ideal way is if I can, at the beginning, have a nice solid outline. And I prefer to work that way. But not every work comes out that way. Some want to give you a vague idea and you move forward. For The Secrets of the Universe, yeah, incredible, copious notes. Nope, if I got one around here, notebooks
Hmm.
full of ideas of things to come. I recently wrote some scenes in episode 7, and I was so excited to see them on the page because I think I'd plotted them out a year or more ago.
Oh.
So to actually see them happen was, yeah, I couldn't believe how long it took me to get to that point in the story. So yeah, incredible details. Through a certain point in the story, I think I'm hoping to tell a 13 episode story.
Hmm.
When I get out towards episodes 12, 13, my understanding is a little more vague right now.
Right.
But I know maybe the final scene of the story. I know generally where things are going to go, and I have a very concrete knowledge of what's going to happen all the way through. Certainly episode 8, and then it goes down a little more each book going out. But as I
Right. Of
get
course.
closer,
Yeah. Very, very
yeah,
cool. And you mentioned earlier that you used to write song lyrics, and I know you're a big music fan. We're friends on Facebook, Twitter, other places like that. What is some of the stuff you're into right now, listening to?
well, today's the day that the U2 album finally dropped, so
Yeah,
that's huge for me.
yeah,
I'm the biggest
Big
YouTube
U2
fan.
fan, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You may have seen some of the arguments I've had on my Facebook page with people accusing U2 of raping their iPhones. All of that.
Yeah, a lot of people are a little upset about it. I just listened to the album for the first time today because I don't have an iPhone. I'm not an iTunes kind of guy, but I listened to it on Spotify and it popped up there, and I really like it. I kind of got away from YouTube for the past several years, and first it's one of those albums that for me is like first time through I'm like, damn, this is good. It's a lot of albums by even other classic bands like them, you got to listen to it 2 or 3 times. This one, it was hitting me right away. I'm digging it, man.
I found that I didn't have much of an opinion, positive or negative, for maybe the first 15 listens
Uh-huh.
because it's so much dense information. I mean that's only half true. Yes, I knew I loved certain songs, but there were a lot of songs I didn't know what I thought about. A couple of them, like California and Song for Someone, I still don't know if I like them or dislike them.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
may hate them, I may love them, I'm not sure. But it is dense information. The thing that's most interesting to me about U2 at this point in their career is they have no right to put out a good album in 2014.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see what you're
in
saying there.
in the sense that everyone else who was maybe equally brilliant back in the 80s, they put out two, three, if you're really lucky, four great albums, and then the muse left them.
Mm-hmm.
They lost the magic, they lost their mojo, and it never came back. Prince also just came out with two albums.
Yeah,
And
on the same day. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've only listened to one of them once, and the other one I think twice, and they haven't grabbed me yet. And I'm a huge Prince fan as well. He seems to, you know, there are always good songs coming out from Prince, but I think the last time he put out a really good album was Graffiti Bridge in like '89.
Right,
so
right.
The muse left him.
I haven't heard the new stuff yet, but I saw one review where a critic had said Prince is still suffering from the fact that he really doesn't know how to, like, I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think they said, like, kind of edit himself. You know, I guess, and he's known for that. You know, he'll just, like, you know, really keep going and keep going.
Well, I think that's it. When you get a musician like Prince, and I think Sting suffers in the same way, nobody can say to him, nobody can say to him, this is not good enough. You're better than this. And how could you? How could you approach someone like Prince or Sting, who's written better songs than anything, and tell them, no, you can do better? It's hard. It's hard.
Right, right.
And how can you listen to anyone else when you know you're the smartest guy in the room? That's really hard.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you know, those kind of artists. I mean, yeah, keep putting yourself out there, and you know, I'm psyched for you too. It is exciting to see them put out something that people are, you know, really excited about. It was exciting for me as a listener, because when did they first start putting out stuff? Was it 80, 81? I mean, I know I was 8. Yeah, because I know I was still in high school when they, you know, came out, and you know, of course, I started high school when I was 7, so it was amazing. Yeah, my growth as a student. You two was
I didn't
awesome.
discover them until '87, and back in '87, they were a great band. You know, Joshua Tree.
I was just gonna say that was Joshua Tree around there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, they weren't the only band of their caliber back then. You know, I was also listening to The Cure and INXS and Echo and the Bunnymen, and I could make you a nice long list of bands which were their peers at that point.
Right.
And one by one, they've fallen and not always really been replaced. I mean, not to say there hasn't been good music since the '80s. There absolutely is great music coming out today. But I guess my point is, U2 has managed to do something which maybe only Bowie, I can think of, has done, which is continue to make great music over multiple decades.
Mm-hmm.
If this new album had come out in 89, 90, 95, you know, it would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But to be able to release an album this good and this fresh sounding, this far into their career, I think there's a lesson to be learned, which musicians and writers and actors and everybody should learn. Maybe it's not good enough to just have one masterpiece, two masterpieces, and then fuck off.
Right, exactly.
Maybe you have to keep going.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. And I went online this afternoon as I was listening to it. I was reading sort of like about the making of the album, and it sounds like, you know, they had gone through an awful lot of songs before they, you know, actually decided on, you know, this compilation. I think they do like a whole album's worth of stuff, and they pretty much scrapped it. I mean they're pros, man. They're going to put out, you know, what they feel is their best stuff. Even probably the stuff that they scrapped would probably blow away like 90% of the stuff that's out there, you know. But they want to.
Well, I heard Bono say they scrapped several albums, and I don't know how literally he means several. Yeah, it's been 5 years since they last released an album, you know, and this century, since the year 000, they've only released 3 albums previously. This is a band that, you know, they're always writing. So any number I guess at is going to be astronomical of how many U2 songs they just didn't choose to share.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot can be learned from that, you know, not just for musicians, but for, you know, writers of prose, you know, for anyone in the arts, you know. I mean, yeah, you want to put stuff out there, and you want to, that's the way we learn, you know, by putting stuff out there. I know that my first book that's coming out soon, it's not going to be my best work ever, you know, but, you know, you got to put the stuff out there, but then, you know, as you grow, you know, make sure you're putting your best stuff out there. You know, just put it out there because you are Prince, and you can put it out there, and no one's going to say no. You know, so yeah, a lot to be learned, and a lot to be appreciated by artists like that.
That's right, and there's something to be said for not being satisfied with your own second best work. It can be really difficult to get in that position. I think maybe it's only because there's 4 of them in U2, and the band never went solo.
Right.
So they're there to say to each other, "Hey, Bono, you're being an ass. Edge, come back, get to work." You know.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And
Hey, well,
then Billy Idol, in a couple weeks too.
yeah, I'm excited about that. I would love to see now. You know what's a shame now is like artists like Billy Idol. Now you two, they're going to get the airplay on the radio. Billy Idol, I think, is still going to.
Their last album did not.
Yeah, and I heard that that was part of the reason that things were delayed because Bono was kind of disappointed. They didn't have like a really big hit off of that, and you see that with
No.
artists, from the '80s and even the '90s. Billy, I would love to see Billy have a hit song again.
Oh God.
Yeah, his last album. What the hell was that? Did you listen to that? It came out, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago. There was some really good stuff on there. There was one called Sherry on there that I loved, and that would have been I think if he had released it, back in the '80s or '90s, would have been a big, big hit. There is one song I know he's released one song from the new album. I heard it on Spotify, and it sounds good. It sounds really, really good.
I heard 30-second clips of 2 of the new songs on Amazon, and they sounded really good to me. He actually released 2 songs post Devil's Playground. I think they were on a best of or something.
Oh, really?
And they were much better than anything on Devil's Playground. One was called John Wayne, and I forget what the other one is. They were really like classic Billy.
Oh, nice.
So I'm really hopeful that I might love the album not just because it's Billy, but because it deserves it.
Right.
Although Billy is so much an attitude as well as music that there's almost nothing he could put out which I wouldn't say hell yeah. But
yeah. Now, does he have Steve Stevens with him again?
Yeah, it's still Steve.
Yeah, awesome. And he's got his book that just came out too, his autobiography.
Yeah,
right?
I've got it around here somewhere.
Oh, you've already got it. Wow.
Yeah, well, I pre-ordered it I don't know, maybe a year ago, and I'd forgotten it was coming out until it showed up in the mail.
Oh, wow.
I haven't read a word of it yet, but I bet it'll be an interesting read.
I can imagine the stories that this guy could tell. I remember seeing him back in the '80s, like on David Letterman's show, and he was just such a great guest, even in an interview show. I remember it was I think it was the beginning of the fall, and Dave's like, what did you do this summer? He goes, oh, I got drunk a lot and had a lot of sex. I mean, he was just awesome, and I'm sure his book is going to be filled with all kinds of.
Oh my God, I can't believe I almost forgot to tell you I pissed Billy Idol off once.
Really? How did that happen?
This was back in I don't know, what year was Charmed Life?
Like
late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, like 89. That had some good songs on it, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, there was some good stuff on there. That was still classic Billy,
Yeah.
Although he didn't have Steve Stevens and suffered for it.
Yeah, well, that was before the cyberpunk failure, but okay.
Yeah, that's where it fell apart. But I went to see him, and actually Faith No More opened up, which was pretty massive for me.
Oh, wow.
Huge Faith No More fan. They have a new album coming out next year, by the way, too.
I saw you post about that. Yeah, I know. It's an exciting time.
But anyway, so Billy comes out, and he'd recently been in a motorcycle accident, you might remember.
I do remember that.
He was walking around with a cane, yeah. And he walks out, and he just finished playing something really exciting, like White Wedding or Rebel Yell, and we're all still pumped, And he comes out, and he's like, and I was in a motorcycle accident, and I nearly died. And I was a kid, and I was so full of energy. And the stadium was quiet, because this was a serious moment. Right. And I shouted out, well, that's all right! I'm still quiet. He turns and he looks at me, and he says, I nearly died.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Totally true, yeah.
That's great. I think we're going to end on that because that's awesome, your Billy Idol story.
Yeah, how do we top that?
I don't think you can. No,
but
not yet. But who knows? I want to thank you for being on the show. I think our live viewers.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I encourage everyone to check out Noah's books. Make sure you check out his new one, The Secrets of the Universe, which we said is, book 1 of Farther Than We Dreamed. And I'm going to, like I said, include a link at the bottom here of Noah's page on Amazon and his other websites. And check him out. Even if you're Billy Idol and you're watching the show and you're still pissed off at Noah, go and check out his books because it's good stuff.
Time to forgive me.
Yes, Billy Idol, it's time to forgive Noah, okay? All right, everyone, thanks again. Noah, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you. Great pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right, everyone, have a great week. I'll see you soon.